Hi, welcome to the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This is Lily here, and today I'm interviewing Alex M. Alex, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here today. How would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners today?
My name's Alex. I'm from a town in East Texas, a little town, it's about 100,000 people called Tyler. And so I've been here in Tyler since I was about 5 years old, almost born, but definitely raised. And I would say right now, my really focus, my highlight in my life is my family. So I have my wife and two kids, and they take up just about all of our time, and we love it. Whether that's playing with them, going on little trips, or trying to teach them, that's our life right now.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I was going to say, what do you do for fun or relaxing these days? Sounds like you got the kids out on some fun outings.
Yes, recently we always are going to places like the zoo or the aquarium, stuff like that. Recently, we actually went to Colorado. That was a big highlight because we wanted them to see snow because in Texas, if we get snow, it's almost nothing. So Colorado, that was really fun. And then really outside of my own personal, I guess, fun, I really like reading. I read a lot. And then I like keeping up with sports, especially football. So those are the two things personal, but honestly, those have had to be cut back with the kids, and I'm grateful for it.
That's wonderful. I understand that. I've definitely become an audiobook person lately, which I never thought I would do, but sometimes audiobooks in the car can be helpful in those
Same here.
situations.
Yep. My
Yeah.
audiobook listening has increased.
Yeah. What's the last book you read or listened to or that you like?
I actually just finished, funny you ask, I literally just finished, I think it was yesterday, American Pain, which was about the oxycodone clinics in Florida, like the pill mills that they were running. Anyway, I went on this big opioid drug book binge because after I got off Kratom, I was just so fascinated by how easy it was to get hooked on something. And anyway, that's actually that was one of my favorite books, I would say, actually. American Pain, very well written and just really interesting how you can chase profit at the expense of morals, honestly.
Yeah. Hey, that's part of why we're here today.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
I want to read that. I want to read that book. I just wrote it down for myself. I've also been interested in like the opioid epidemic and how that all started. I think a lot of us have noticed there's some similarities and parallels between Kratom and all of that. So good call. So yeah, on that note, what is your Kratom quit date and where are you today in your sobriety journey?
I quit officially May 24 of last year. It was a Saturday. My last dose was on Friday, and 100% sober since then, no relapses or anything. And honestly, feeling way better than I ever thought I would off Kratom, because when you're on it, you just think life is going to end if you stop taking it. But it's a really good feeling right now. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you're approaching a year. Do you want to do anything to celebrate or have you been thinking about that, like what that means for you coming up?
Yeah. So one of the like things I wanted to do was actually, like, as a celebration, was be on this podcast. So that actually I'm fulfilling it. So there you go. That was, because like it would just be cool to have it as a life marker, even something that I can show my kids one day or anyone who's struggling with something similar, because yeah. So this is definitely a milestone, I would say,
That's
for sure.
amazing. Oh, that's so great. I'm happy to help with your milestone. That's wonderful. And hopefully you can toast yourself with some sparkling water or something on the day of.
That's it. That's
Something.
it. Yes.
That's great. So yeah, take us back to your first time encountering Kratom. What was going on in your world at the time? Like what kind of brought you to try it? How did you find it?
Yeah. Interesting story. So I think everyone has like a reason why they take Kratom the first time. And you may not even know it at the time. But for me, looking back, it was 100%. And this is maybe different from a lot of people, but for me, it was financial insecurity. And which is funny because you'd think you're spending money on Kratom, but basically, I was on staff at a church, and I was also trying to run a web design business on the side, a side hustle type thing. And my wife, she was a teacher, and so we had chosen two careers that were pretty low paying, teaching and ministry. And our first child, our son had just been born. And I was trying to make everything work financially. And so I was really trying to get this web design thing really up and running. And the issue was, I realized when I was focused and locked in, I could just increase my productivity so much more. The problem was, like, there's only so much caffeine you can take, and then you get jittery, anxious. And so I kept looking for these supplements. And so I tried Joe Rogan's On It Focus supplement. I tried Focus Factor. I tried everything I could think of, and nothing, either I would feel nauseous or it just wouldn't have an effect, or it just, nothing really was like, I don't really, and it was always, for me, it was always the afternoon crash. That's always what would hit me. And I'd be at the church, get a lot of my work done in the morning, maybe have a little bit of time in the afternoon to work on some web design. And I would just feel like this complete crash. And so anyway, I had driven past, we lived on a highway back then. And on the highway, there was this billboard that I drove past every single day on the way to work, and big billboard. And on the billboard, it said, and this was part of the name of the store, was part of in the name was Kratom. And there was a guy that was smiling, and he had a Bible verse on the billboard. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Oh no.
And so I kept passing every day, didn't think too much of it, but I always thought it was interesting. And so I did a little bit of online research just to see what Kratom was. And back then, there wasn't nearly as much as there is today. There was still a decent amount, but I basically, and then to my own detriment, I basically started going on his website and reading a lot of his stuff that he had written, because he was on like the American Kratom Association board, and he was
Oh,
involved in a lot of legal stuff for Kratom. And on his website, he's got a picture of his two kids, and they're smiling, and he has his whole testimony of coming to the Lord, his testimony of how Kratom helped him, because originally he had been addicted to other substances. And anyways, which that should have maybe been a warning sign in my mind looking back. But at the time, you're like, oh, this is amazing that this is helpful. And anyway, but I kept passing that billboard, and it was always in the back of my mind, but it just felt weird because I also knew that like smoke shops had the Kratoms on their signs. And so I was like, I know it's sold at other places, but I also know that there's useful things for a lot of substances. And so anyway, finally, I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to go in, and I'm going to go into this store, and I'm just going to see what's going on. And to be honest, I had never been to any smoke shop in my entire life. I had never walked in one, had never seen the inside of one. So this was a completely new experience. And I walk in, and basically the inside of it looked like a wellness store. It looked like if you've ever been to like a nutrition place where they sell like smoothies and stuff, it looked like
yeah.
that. And they had Bible verse posters all over. They had Christian music playing. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm on staff at a church. Like, this might be my people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I walk in, and there's a lady behind the counter, and she wasn't the guy on the billboard. He had two different locations in East Texas. But anyway, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ask her and see what her thoughts are on this. And I'm not going to make a decision. Looking back, I think I already had my mind made up, to be completely honest, because it's like this lure of, oh, try something new. But I told myself I was just going to ask some questions. So she's behind the counter, and I'm like, hey, I just want to know a little bit about Kratom. And so the first thing she asked me, which is interesting, she's like, oh, what are you looking for? Are you looking for stress relief? Are you looking for euphoria? Are you looking for focus? What kind of are you looking for? I don't know, energy. That's what she said, not focus. She's like, energy. And when I heard euphoria, I was like, maybe that should have been a warning sign. Maybe, right? But she said energy, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, energy would be great. So I told her, I was like, really, I just want to be able to focus. And I told about, I'm trying to start this business and really need to be able to lock in. And she's, okay, here's what I would recommend for you. And they had the red, yellow, green strands, all that. I started out with powder, of course. I didn't end there, but I started out with powder. And so she recommended just a basic green powder. And she shared a lot of her testimony with me as well. And she was a Christian, and she had gotten off hard drug use. So yeah, these things are like, wow, like this is really a good thing for people, is what I was thinking at the time. And so anyway, I just talked with her a while about it, and I ended up buying, I don't know, it was maybe 20 grams or something. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to try it out, and I'm only going to take it in the afternoons whenever I start feeling like that crash coming on. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started.
Okay. Okay. And that was, what year was that when you started this?
So this would have been 2022. Yep, very beginning of
2022.
2022. Yep.
Okay. So you're trying to work extra jobs. You're a brand new dad. You're having a very human and normal 3 p.m. crash of energy in the afternoon.
Correct.
I feel for you because it's like we want to keep running and like keeping things going as they were. And then life things happen, like you have a child and you're trying to work extra. It's human to get tired. And it's also human to want to not be tired. So I understand that draw. And I feel bad because like they got you hook, line, and sinker. Oh, it's like a religious man and like he's my people and looks like a nice guy.
Yep. Yep, 100%.
And he had the picture on the website and man, it's in also like when you are in a new life stage like that and you're trying to maybe find yourself again or figure out who you are and you see someone that you're like, oh, like they look nice. Like, why can't I trust them? Like, I should trust them. I hate that.
Completely.
Ah.
And I should mention with that, and exactly what you described, another thing was that the lady I talked to, made a very like point of mentioning that this is in the coffee family. It is very similar to taking coffee. She's like, very similar to that. And I was like, oh, okay, if that's all it is. Maybe it's just a substance that people just need to get used to, or it needs to be not have a stigma attached to it. That's what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like we all drink coffee and if it's just some like foreign version of another type of coffee, like it's 1 degree different, how bad could it be?
correct.
Yeah, I
Correct.
get that. Okay, so you said that you had never been into it like a smoke shop before at all. So did you ever use any other substances before or have issues with substance use or alcohol or anything before this started?
No, so I would drink socially, never been addicted other than like caffeine. I was definitely had been addicted to in the past and probably still am today. But that was the only thing, which is that's a very compared to kratom, that's pretty minor. Not that it's not something to be mindful about, but no other substance until I started trying kratom. And that's why it was almost like looking back, it felt a little sneaky because it
Mhm.
kind of snuck in my life and I got addicted very quickly and didn't even realize it was happening and justified it
Yeah,
in so many ways, but I'll talk about that in a little bit, but
sure.
yeah.
How much coffee were you drinking at your height of feeling
Oh, I always tried to keep myself below, like, the FDA recommended, and so their recommendation is 400 milligrams a day. So I was like, "Okay," so
Oh,
I'd always get right up to that level, and then sometimes I'd go just a little over it, but I thought, "Okay, if I'm at the FDA maximum, then I'm good." That
yeah.
was
Is
the
that what, like 3 cups? 4 cups?
that would probably be, yeah, right around 4 or 5 cups, yep.
Okay, got it. Some countries in Europe, they're, like, running on coffee all day long, and they seem to survive.
So that's why I'm like, it was nothing compared to because I've gone cold turkey off caffeine and it was like you get tired and you take a few naps and
Right.
nothing like getting off kratom.
Yeah, there's the coffee addiction where you're like, "I have a headache and I'm annoyed at people," and then there's this, and yeah, no one's, like, running out to buy coffee in the middle of the night because they can't handle it anymore. That's, like,
Correct.
the difference. Yeah, okay, so you started with the powder at the shop, and you had your personalized wellness plan from the nice church lady.
Yes.
How dare she? So you started with the powder, and what amount did you start with, or what was your dose like? You said afternoons only, and was that just, like, weekdays afternoons? Like, how did that start and progress?
Yeah. So I always justified it to myself by saying I would only take it during work hours. And
Mhm.
it started off being like, okay, I'll just take it in the afternoons only when I'm feeling that crash. That happened every day. So it was very quick that it happened. I just took it every single day after lunch. And then pretty soon I realized if I took it before lunch, the effects were much stronger, which everyone realizes pretty quickly. But then I would only take it once per day starting out on weekdays only. And that lasted for maybe 3 weeks. And then I realized very quickly, oh man, my weekends feel pretty bad. Like I felt fatigued, anxious if I didn't have that weekend dose. So then I'm like, okay, just like caffeine, I'll just start taking it on weekends, just once per day. And so anyway, so it happened very quickly as it basically started out as one dose of powder once per day is how it started out.
Yeah, and, like, when you brought home this new product to help with your focus? Did you tell your wife, like, oh, I found this new thing, or did you not tell her?
I did tell her right away because I
Yeah.
thought it was somewhat innocent. And I will say this, she got a little concerned when we had some church people we knew who the husband had become addicted to Kratom, and the wife was really
Oh,
concerned about him. And I was like, "Oh, but that's," I was like, "Babe, he's taking it for the wrong reasons." I was like, I said, I just get focused from it. I was like, "I'm sure he's taking it all day." I completely gaslit my own wife.
oh,
I mean, I say gaslit. I don't think I
but
actually had
yourself.
any idea. Yeah, I was
You
gaslighting
gaslit
myself.
yourself.
Yep, I was gaslighting myself.
Yeah.
And I never told her, I will say this, I never told her that I ever increased the dose. To her knowledge, the entire time I was on it, I was taking it maybe once per day on weekdays only. I took it on vacations and started hiding it from her because I had to have it. I would take it once I upped the dose. I never told her. To her knowledge, until I was about ready to quit, she thought it was just a minor thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's get into that. So you started out using afternoons and then weekends too. And there was the one comment of that one guy that was addicted, but that's just him.
Yep.
Like, how much did it increase, like, quietly over time? And like, how long was this?
So when I was, this is 2022, I kept it to about one dose per day for just about the whole year. And I remember, this is crazy. I remember I would even have to take it on Sunday mornings. Towards the end of 2022 is when I started going to two doses, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, or around that time. And I remember there were times I would take it on, and this is crazy to say, I would take it on Sunday mornings before church. So I would go to church on Kratom. Sometimes I would even be speaking that day or praying or whatever it would be. And I would be up there on Kratom, which is so crazy to say now, but that's just what it was. And so I just thought I just have to take it, because if I don't, I just won't be myself and I'll be tired and anxious, and you start justifying it
Yeah.
very quickly. But basically for just about all of 2022, I was at about one. At the end of the year, I started going to two doses. And then 2023, towards the beginning of the year, left my ministry job and started my own business. And there's a series of events that led to that. It wasn't in web design, totally different industry through a connection, but basically started my own business, completely 1099 employee, not a contractor, not an employee anymore. And so for the first time in my life, it was like, oh wow, I have to really hustle and make sure. So now it's ramped up even more. And around this time, I started realizing that they had these not capsules, because it didn't have powder. They were these tablets that just had straight mitragynine in them,
Oh,
and they were selling them at the same place. And so I started switching before too long from powder to just straight these tablets that you just chew, and they had straight the mitragynine. And first I started off on like the 80 milligram ones, and I would take like half, and then I would start taking the whole 80 milligram ones. And then they had the higher version, which was like 100 or 120. Basically, starting in 2023, I started taking them about twice a day, stronger doses. And then pretty soon it got up to three times a day. And then it just kept going up and up, because I'm like, I got to stay focused all day because I'm starting this. I'm self employed. I have to make everything work. I put all this pressure on myself.
yeah.
And basically, it kept ramping up until at the end of my addiction, I was taking, and I can't remember if it was 100 or 120 milligrams of mitragynine four times a day. But I had it like where I was still justifying it, because I told myself, I'm only going to take it during the workday. And so I'd wake up early to work. I'd take it at 5 a.m. And then I would go to my office and take it at 8 a.m. And then I had like my schedule in my mind. Then I would take it before lunch at 11:30 a.m. And then I'd take it in the afternoon at 2 p.m. And then I wouldn't take it other than that. So you can imagine how much I crashed like at night and just was completely not functional.
Wow.
But that's how I justified it, because I just told myself, as long as I'm only taking it for focus and not for anything else, I'm okay, because that's the only reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
which sounds so
No, it
ridiculous
makes
now.
sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense. It's very logic when you're in the kratom haze. That makes absolute sense. That is absolutely justifiable in your brain when you're in it. It makes total sense. You must have been were you having a hard time, like, sleeping at night because it was, like, leaving your body, the dose? Or
Yeah, I would just wake up extremely anxious, and I didn't really know why. And then sometimes I'd even wake up early and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get up early and work," because I and
yeah.
so I'd and so it was like you have the minor dope sickness or whatever they call it, like the sniffles, the anxiety, just the feeling just weird off. But then whenever I took that 5 a.m. dosage, then I'd always feel back to normal. But really what it affected more than anything was I was just I felt like I was just not a good father after 7 p.m. Because once that 2 p.m. dose wears off, I was, not that I was like, I always justified and always, I felt like played the part of trying to be a good dad, but I just crashed. Like I was so fatigued, so tired. I just wanted to lay down around that time.
Of
And
course.
so that was definitely a way that it really affected.
Absolutely. Did you have a moment in your use when it was up to the 4 times a day where you had a realization like something's wrong or maybe something's off or maybe this is actually a problem?
Yeah, it's funny because I just kept justifying it in my mind
Uh-huh.
and I never admitted it. I did come to realization when I was on the highest dosage for about 6 months or a year, which was the full extracts 4 times a day. After I don't know if it was 6 months or whatever, like the effect just it almost I was like, man, I don't really feel any energy from this anymore. I just feel normal. And I was taking so much caffeine with it. I was going way above the limit I talked to you about
Oh,
earlier. I was probably more like 800 milligrams a day or something. It was bad. Because when you're on Kratom, I don't know, it just breaks you down in a way where you
yep,
lose sight of a lot of those boundaries.
yep.
And then in the evenings, because I know people that are on hardcore opiates, they call it like opie rage, where they get really you get mad, and you don't even know why.
Okay.
And so I was like trying to take like kava and stuff, which I didn't even know what any of this stuff was. It came across my Facebook marketing. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try this. It was like stress relief, and which that just keeps going. And
Yep.
yeah, it's just so funny. And the guy at the store was like, oh, you could try THC or you could try, and he gave me like some options. And because I told him I just felt stressed in the evenings, and I thought it was all because of work, not realizing it was just withdrawal from kratom. And yeah, I just had no clue. And anyway, to answer your question, I did not realize that I knew it had crossed a line or I knew it was like too much until about a week before I actually quit, which is just
Okay.
crazy to say.
And when was that? What was that week like before you quit? What was the aha moment or what is wrong with me moment or what is wrong with this situation moment?
So it's funny that this was the reason, but my wife and I had planned a trip to Disney with our kids. It was like the first big trip we were taking. Our son was, let's see, 3.5. Our daughter was almost 2. And this was back in a year ago, back in May of 2025. And
Yeah.
we were getting ready. We were trying to plan for it and all that. And all of a sudden, I don't know why it hit me, but it just hit me. And this was like what in my mind, what played. It was like, I'm going to the happiest place on earth, but I am not going to be happy unless I have this drug in my system the whole time. Isn't and I Because at that point I admitted to myself, like, okay, it's gotta be some sort of a drug. Like you realize it, but you justify it. And I just realized I was like, wow, I'm going to the happiest place on earth. And if I were to stop taking it that day, I would be absolutely miserable no matter what was going on around me, which is a pretty sobering realization. And that's really what did it. And I told my wife, I was like, I don't know and then I just broke down. I was like, I used way more than I ever told you. I've been completely addicted. I've hit it on trips. I would have it in my pocket in
Yep.
church because I knew I'd have to take it before we ate after church. I'd have this little tablet in my pocket just ready to chew in the
Yeah.
bathroom or something.
Yeah.
Um, the taste isn't good. So I had like orange juice in my office. Like just I would buy orange juice and put it in our fridge all the time, and I don't even like orange juice very much. It's like it made it easier to take it. Just crazy, just stuff like that. And so finally I broke down. I told my wife, I was like, I am so sorry. I have completely like misrepresented, what this is. And
Yeah.
she was actually very understanding because I wanted to get off it right away. And she had mentioned it to me a couple months about every 2 or 3 months she would mention it because she was worried.
Okay.
She had no idea what it was like how bad it had gotten.
So this was about in total 3.5 years of
Yeah, just over
starting to
3 years.
finish?
Yep.
Just over 3 years? Okay. I'm glad that you had that realization. Sometimes it's realizing, wait, this thing that I like I don't think I'm going to like it unless I have the Kratom. What's going on with that? And for it to be Disney, this is sweet with my kids. Dad's going to Disneyland. Like, dad has to go Disneyland on drugs. What is this? Who am I? I think we all have that moment of, wait, I like this thing. Why do I need to bring this with me to make it good? It's already good.
100%.
I'm glad you had that moment. Thanks, Mickey Mouse, for helping you quit. That's really good. Okay, so you were about to go on the trip? Like how many days before the trip?
So this was about a month before we left because we were going to leave in June. I want to say the day I quit, May 24, it was exactly 3 weeks from then we were going to leave. And so I just knew I had other people in my life that were in the industry I'm in that had also quit Kratom. And which is funny because they actually told me, they're like, hey, when you're ready to get off, let me know and I'll help you out. And so I was like,
Oh,
wait, what? But I just justified it because I was like, oh, they were probably on higher doses. They were probably on, I just, it's so
yeah.
ridiculous that I just justified it. But finally, then I was like, okay, I have 3 weeks. I knew from a friend that it was going to take at least 2 weeks to feel at least somewhat normal. A week of really bad is what I knew. But I had no idea how bad it would be. But yeah, so it was 3 weeks before the Disney trip that I officially went, and I did go cold turkey.
You decided this. Your friends are ready to back you up. Usually, this is rare that people have a support network right out the get-go, like to have someone that had already quit in your court. I think that might be the first time I've actually heard this.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
great.
I cannot tell you how helpful it was because like I had no idea about vitamin C and how much that can help with withdrawal. I had no idea about the lack of sleep to expect. It wasn't until after I had quit that I found, because then I started doing a ton of research, that I found like the Kratom subreddit, the quitting Kratom subreddit. I found like all these resources. I started asking ChatGPT about stuff like I had no idea until then.
Yeah.
And so even the day I quit, like this friend, I'm like, hey, I'm quitting today. He's, oh, awesome. He's, you definitely want to get this much vitamin C and take
Oh,
it and I felt so just off. And then
yeah.
because of that, I felt, okay, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was still the worst experience of my life by far. But I had that support network and my wife was very supportive, but it was
That's
definitely,
amazing.
yeah, definitely miserable. But I just can't imagine doing it without any support network whatsoever. That would be very tough.
It is very common. It's the most common stories. If you have someone to tell, that's great. And that's like the first step. But most people don't seem to have anyone else in their court that has been off of Kratom like that. Yeah, that's definitely the first time I've heard that, at least in my interviews. I don't think I've heard it, but it's really good that you had someone else knowing what was going on. I wonder if they fell for the same billboard guy. Did they go to the same guy?
So this person didn't. In the industry I'm in, which I'm my business,
Uh-huh.
it's in the roofing world. And so
Uh-huh.
there's an not underground, but a lot of people in the roofing industry and construction in general are
Yes.
on Kratom or opioids, but Kratom's or stimulants in general, but
Yes.
Adderall and stuff. But Kratom's a big one because I'm in that world now. It definitely, I had some people who had already been through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to keep your energy up when you're on a roof all day. That's for sure. Those poor guys. I'm glad you had help in that way. And then, so what was your game plan? You knew it was going to be bad, but then it was worse than you thought, but you had some tips. What was that recovery with like acute withdrawal process like for you?
Yes. I always tell everyone, imagine, and I think everyone who's been through this can attest. And this is my experience. I know for a fact because I know people have gotten off 7-OH. 7-OH is way worse than what I'm about to describe. But for me, it was like the worst flu of your life, combined with the worst depression of your life, combined with the worst anxiety of your life, and then you can't sleep on top of it. That's what I think that probably is like the best description I can think of.
Yep.
Let me know if you think that's pretty accurate.
No, I agree. I agree. Yep. That sounds like an accurate description. I would agree with that. Yep.
And I
Ah.
remember what surprised me the most because I've always been like a deep sleeper. I've never had any insomnia. So that's and two things. I never had that and I've never had just genetically I've never had any anxiety. Like I've had stress, of course, but I've never had like actual anxiety. So whenever people would describe it to me, I would empathize, but I had no idea what it actually felt like. And then I had
Yep.
2 anxiety attacks in the withdrawal process, like where it's what everyone describes. Your heart's palpitating, your mind is just going in circles. You're so fearful. I was imagining. I remember we had gone to my in-laws and we're driving back, and I asked my wife to drive because I just did not feel. I felt so bad.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking the entire time we're driving home, we're going to die. Like I was just imagining the car crash. My heart was, and I had never had those thoughts before, completely foreign. And I remember thinking like, and thankfully I was I guess sentient enough to realize this is what an anxiety attack feels like. And I just had never experienced that before. And now I have so much empathy for people who deal with those because I'm like, man, if I had that my whole life or weekly or daily like that, I cannot imagine how you could
Yeah.
survive with that. Yeah, it was horrible. And
Yeah.
so I will say the whole process gave me a ton of empathy for anxiety, people on it with anxiety, for drug users. It just gave me
Yep.
so much empathy because of that. And then
Yep.
anyway, and then the sleep part of it that was like the first couple nights I got maybe 30 minutes each night. I think I got 30 minutes the first night, maybe 2 hours the second night, 30 minutes or an hour the third night. Finally, the fourth night, I might have gotten 4 hours, but it was like I remember and I went to work after let's see, I quit on a Saturday, and Monday was Memorial Day, so I went back to work on Tuesday on 30 minutes of sleep or an hour of sleep, and thankfully, I work in what I do with the roofing industry is I work in an office by myself. I have my own solo type business, and so thankfully, it's not like there was anybody around me, but just complete zombie, but your heart's pounding the whole time, so it's not because your cortisol or whatever is resetting. So it's not like you can actually rest, but you can't really it's hard to work, but you just feel like a zombie. So I was like just trying to make myself do something. Just absolute horrible feeling the whole time. Definitely rough. Definitely.
I'm glad no one was at least like staring at you in the office during this time. That would have sucked. You're just
Yep.
staring at yourself like, yeah, gosh, put yourself right back to work. I'm glad that you were your own boss during that time so you
Yes.
could schedule your day in a way that made sense to you. So you had your acquaintance that had been off Kratom, you told your wife, and then did you share the process with anyone else when you had quit or anything like from your church? Did you reach out to anyone in that community at all?
No, no. I definitely had a lot of shame. I will say especially during the acute withdrawal phase, I had
Mhm.
so much shame. Like we went to church. And I remember just crying, and part of it was because you finally have, your emotions back, so it's a little bit of a joy there, but a lot of it was, like, there was a lot of shame because I was like, "How could I do this to myself? How could I lie to myself and justify it for so long?" And just if it had been a couple weeks, it would make sense, but I'm like, "How could I justify this for over 3 years?" And no, so I didn't, other than my wife and my friend, no one else knew, and now other people know. But
Uh-huh.
at the time, no, there was a lot of shame involved, I will say that.
Yeah. Did your wife express anything that she noticed, like a difference in your behavior, like during that quit time? Oh, actually, I did notice this, or you did seem a little off. I know you said that she was concerned every couple months she would say something, but did she name specific things?
She did. It's funny you asked that. So she came to me one time and she was like basically in tears and basically said that she had completely lost connection. And like we knew we were always going to be together. That was never even a question, but like we had always had such a strong relationship. And
Yeah.
even through the birth of our first son, before I got on Kratom, like we had always just had a connection, no matter how tired we were, no matter how emotional or whatever was going on, stressed. We always had a really good connection. So she came to me, and I specifically remember when she said, "I just don't feel connected to you at all." And
Oh,
and what's funny is that in the moment, I was actually internally, because it was like 8 p.m. at night when she said that, I was like upset because in my mind, I'm thinking, and again, this is because I'm the Kratom, I'm thinking, like, how can you say that? I'm doing really well in business. I'm providing for our family. I'm doing like what I'm supposed to do as a dad. I remember thinking those thoughts and I was like, I can't tell her that because I had enough empathy still, thankfully, to be like, okay, I want to try to understand her. But like in my mind was playing, like, what could I do better? What's going on?
oh,
And then that was part of it was like, oh my goodness, after I got off of Kratom, like our connection immediately returned. And it wasn't even anything like I can consciously say I did this different. It's just when someone is not right. And I'll say this, like whether you think, and if anyone's listening to this, like whether you think you're acting normal or not, like eventually the curtain falls and people can tell that something's just a little off. And the people
Yes.
close to you are the ones who can really tell. And so looking back, I'm like, man, I cannot believe I made my wife even have to say those words. And it was 100% because of Kratom. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, that's really vulnerable of her to be able to name that. And I think it's a typical response when you're in the addiction to be like, what do you mean? I'm doing great. Like I'm powering
Yes.
through, man. I'm doing more than ever and I've got this. It's common to have that mindset about it. And yeah, you're right. The people that are closest to you can see those things because they're subtle, but these are the people that's in your life all the time and they're going to see that and they're going to notice like, oh, he didn't make eye contact in that normal way or he didn't hug me in that normal way. Just little tiny things.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm glad she could name that and I'm really glad that your connection came back in that way. That's important and that's wonderful that you made it through as a couple too, you
Yes.
know? Because
Yes.
addictions can break people apart and can put stress on relationships. And, anyone that's been through this in a relationship knows that. And not everyone makes it through. It can be really challenging. I'm really glad that you came back full force. It's important. Yeah.
So it
So,
definitely was a blessing.
absolutely. So, how long was the acute withdrawal stage for you? And you're working independently. Were you working in an office or were you working from home with your new job that you started?
So I started out working from home
Uh huh.
and that was when I had to hide all the Kratom around the house.
Yeah.
So she didn't know, so my wife didn't know how much I was taking, or if she saw it, I would just say, oh, I stocked up for my once daily dose. I would never say that, but she just was under the assumption that it was not more than that. But started out working from home. And then in 2024, I needed just to, because our daughter had been born. And so our rooms around the house were getting filled up and we wanted to
Yeah.
have a little playroom. And so I was like, let me just find an office somewhere. And so I got a one room office, which I'm still in right now.
Great.
And basically that's when I was able to start taking Kratom to the office. And
Uh,
that was when it became, and I could even, eventually I started even getting, this is funny, but off track thing, but I did try 7-OH a couple times. And I just took it because I saw it on Facebook. Again, Facebook marketing. That's and so
Facebook.
and so I was like, let me try this because it's so much cheaper. And if 5 or 10 milligrams of 7-OH can do the same as 100 or 120 of just the mite extract, maybe I can switch and save way more money. But I took it maybe, I don't know, for a couple weeks and I began to get this horrible anxiety. I kept waking up at night with this
Oh,
weird anxiety feeling. And then I stopped taking it and that went away. And yeah, I realized how weird 7-OH is. And so whenever started realizing that, I was like, okay, let me just switch back.
wow. That's a
Yeah.
blessing too. Dang.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I know people that just kept going higher and higher doses of 7-OH. And then you know how that
Yeah. It
it's
takes
a
off really
horrible,
fast. It does.
but all that to say, the total withdrawal for the acute, I'd say was about 4 days. And then it was still really bad after that, but the sleep
Yeah.
came back after about 4 days.
That's
So
amazing.
So it wasn't as bad as some I've heard because yeah, again, my friend, he was just like 2 weeks of not being able to sleep. And I
Sure.
will say this, huge blessing, I never had restless leg syndrome. So many people have talked about that as part of their withdrawal. I had everything else like diarrhea and all the stuff that goes with sweating out weird stuff and smelling weird.
Yeah.
And I had all the
Yeah.
other stuff, but the feeling horrible all the time. But the actual like restless leg and I never had that, which was, I've heard that's unbearable sometimes.
Yeah.
So I would say so it quit on a Saturday. Obviously, the latter half of the day on Saturday was horrible. Sunday was horrible. Tuesday was probably the worst day because all those not being able to sleep all compounded. And then I think it was Tuesday night I finally got some sleep. And then Wednesday I felt maybe 50%. So it was like, okay,
That's
now I can actually feel like I can operate a little bit.
wow.
Then I did have a Wednesday night, I didn't sleep very much. So then Thursday I felt horrible again. So maybe it was more like 5 or 6 days. But then after Thursday, I began to sleep 6
A
hours a night
short
or so.
a
Yeah.
work week. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's great. You had a bad work week? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's wow, that's great the sleep came back pretty quickly then. What tools did you use that first month of getting through things, like, emotionally or physically, aside from the vitamin C and whatnot? Did you go to church more often, or what kinda habits and tools did you have?
So I would say just on a practical level, the what's really underrated, if anyone's about to get off kratom, or the sauna is like a huge help. So there, thankfully, next to my office, there's this gym and they have a sauna and they have a cold plunge. And so
Awesome.
I had gotten a membership and thankfully I'd already had access to that. And so the sauna, because you just need to sweat out all this stuff that's been like completely
Mm,
toxic in your body. And so I would do that every day at work around lunchtime. I would just go in and just stay in the sauna for as long as I could. And then
amazing.
after that, I would go to the cold plunge to try to shock my body so I could work again in the afternoon. But the sauna is very underrated. Cold plunge is underrated.
Yep.
And then I would say this, like a lot of what I did is as I was working, I would just listen to like worship music because all this shame that I had and all this just emotion that was finally coming back, it's like I finally felt like I could feel again. And so that was really a huge, huge thing because in church, I remember I'd become almost a zombie in church. Like I was just there and maybe going through the motions, but not really like having any emotion with it.
Yeah,
So I would say that feeling that emotion was really good
that's
and allow
wonderful.
myself to be like, this is a good thing that I can finally feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that yeah, that's a common experience that people will share is that music that they love and appreciate comes back to them so that they can appreciate it, whether it's like their favorite band or something that's calming to them. Yeah, so that's great you were able to reconnect with that. Music is so joyful, and when you don't seem to care about it all of a sudden, it's like, what's going on? I don't even care. What? It's
Oh,
a
it
weird feeling.
completely yeah, and I will say the other thing was whenever I was
Mhm.
on Kratom, one thing I loved to do was go running because when you run on Kratom, you feel like this, this really incredible I mean, it's really
Yep.
euphoria. I thought it was just a runner's high, which
Too. Like, "I'm so fast. This is great." Yeah.
I feel so
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
But I remember after I got off, I tried running, like because people were like, "Oh, go exercise, that'll help you through." And normally I can run a 5K, no problem. And I got to half a mile and I could barely breathe. And this was like 2 days after I quit. And I was like, I felt horrible the whole time, but I was like, "Oh, I'll still be fine." And we just couldn't even go. And it was such a weird experience. And so I stopped doing that for a while because I was like, let me let my body reset a little bit. Some people I think can go through that, but it was just I just couldn't. And then honestly, another thing that really helped me was this podcast. I listened a lot of people say this, of course, but tried to listen to just about every episode. So fascinated to realize, oh, there's other people out there.
Yep.
You don't even think about it. And then I mentioned this earlier, but reading books and watching like movies and shows about drugs was really fun.
Yep.
Or I say
Yep.
fun. It kept my mind occupied. Nothing was fun,
I
but
know.
it kept my
I
mind
know.
occupied.
Uh,
And I to anyone listening, I'll just make a couple recommendations just so anyone can maybe do that as well if they're interested. But I already mentioned American Pain was a really good
yep.
book. Another really good book was Dreamland, which was about how a lot of the prescription pain pills like Oxycontin and stuff led to heroin abuse. And it talks about how the whole heroin was trafficked in through Mexico. And it's just so fascinating
Wow.
how it's all connected. And then another one, which is historical because my degree is in history, was Blitzed. And that was a history of drugs in the Third Reich, so under Hitler. And so
Whoa.
a lot of the Nazi soldiers would take Pervitin, which was like meth, and that's how the German army was anyway. It's just such a fascinating book. And then Hitler was on opioids and stimulants basically for the last, I don't know what, 10 years of his life maybe. And so they
Oh,
look at some of his they're like, "Why does he seem so hyped up here?" And they have documentation where his doctor is giving him literally IV injections of opioids and like meth. And
dude.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Yeah, that would be the anger. What did you say? The opioid rage, or what did you say earlier?
I've seen people call it opie rage. I
Opie
guess that's like
rage?
a slang term for it. But yeah, I was like, oh, this might actually explain some, nothing explains it, right? It's horrific. And demonic, but this is
It
like
adds
an
to the
interesting.
picture. Yeah.
Yes,
You're like, oh, that's supporting both of things. Yes.
correct,
It's not making anyone a better person, basically. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. So American Pain was one book, Dreamland, and then Blitzed, you said?
Yeah, blitzed.
Okay. I have not heard of those. I think I may have heard of American Pain,
Sure.
but the last two, yep, I'm going to look those up. There's some good movies out there too about, I feel like there's one on Netflix that's about, it's about the pain management and the opioid clinics that popped up. And okay, I'm going to have to look this up so we bring it into the show notes. But it was like pain management or pain. It's on Netflix right now. And
There
it's
was
about
one,
this.
I didn't watch it, but it was called Pain Hustlers. And I'm reading the book right now. I don't know if that's okay.
That was it.
I'm
Thank
reading
you.
that book right now. Yeah.
Heck yes.
And then there's
Okay,
one on
Hustlers. Thank you.
there's one on Disney Plus and Hulu, I believe, called Dope Sick. And that might be my favorite. I watched a few of them, but out of all of them, Dope Sick is by far and away like the one that I thought. And that was about Purdue Pharma and their like the OxyContin prescription pain pill overdose, total
Yeah.
onslaught to society. That one was really good
Yeah.
too. But Pain Hustlers, I'm reading the book. I haven't watched the show or the movie yet.
The movie is shocking. It's like you're just like what goes wrong in the future, and so you're just
Oh,
clenching your fists like in anger for these poor people that went through it at the time. And yeah, it definitely, you feel compassion for those that get hooked. And it's same as our stories. We're thinking it's fine. There's these trusted people in lab coats nodding along and saying it's fine.
Yes.
And then there you are later struggling, and they're like, oh, it's just you. It's not the problem. It's not the medicine. It's you react to it wrong or something.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of finding validation in films and books. And thanks for those recommendations. So since you quit, because we're coming up on a year, I know you said you haven't relapsed, but have you had moments where you thought about using again or close calls?
Yes. I don't know if I'd call it a close call, but like my mind was trying to trick me. I felt at around, I thought after a month I'd be good.
Oh,
I'm very optimistic. And so I remember even after a month, I still felt like this fatigue just randomly and your dopamine levels are still getting reset. And I remember at 6 months, at 6 months, I started feeling back to 100%. I felt like normal or close to it. But I had these 2 or 3 dreams in a row. And the dreams were always me going into some sort of a place. And it was always a place I didn't recognize. And I would either get a Kratom tea, which I've only had once in my life, or I would order some powder or a tablet and I would take it and I would feel so much shame and then I would wake up. And so I feel like my mind was telling me like, this is shameful, stay away. That's the way I took it. Or it was my mind saying, hey, you want to try this again? And there were times like I was like, man, I need something to try to get to that same energy level I used to have. But I always kept in my mind how my wife felt and how disconnected I felt, how less of a father I was, and how horrible I felt all the time, and all the little side effects that you get. And so because of that, I can't say there's ever been a moment that's been close, thankfully, but it's definitely been like there's things in my mind that occasionally will pop up. Man, this would feel really good right now, but there hasn't been any. I wouldn't say there's been any close calls per se.
that's wonderful.
But the mind will always. I'm always aware of it because I know how the mind works, right?
Yep. What do you do when you have those mental moments of wouldn't that be nice? What do you do? Do you talk yourself through it mentally, or what happens in that process?
I say a quick prayer and then I go on the subreddit quitting Kratom every single time.
Okay.
Because as
Great.
soon as you go on there, the first post is always, I'm in withdrawal. This is horrible. And you're like, oh yeah, withdrawal was the worst thing ever. And I can't believe what I became. And then as you start bringing back all these memories, and then it's, for me at least, it completely erases any urge. It really does. Any even desire.
Yeah. Do you have any observations or reflections about the fears and misconceptions that come up when people might start quitting? Like, oh, I'm afraid I'll never do this again, or I'm afraid of that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was so afraid that I would not be able to run my business at the same level again. I was so afraid of that because I thought the reason I had done well was because of Kratom. Like I had convinced myself in my mind. And so whenever I got off, I'm like, I'm just going to be like a shell of myself. Like, I don't know if I'll have the same confidence. Like I told myself all this, right? And then I get off it. And looking back, I realize now, like at a certain point, Kratom stops being as enjoyable, right? Because you can only go up and up your dose so much. And at some point, and I think the analogy that I would say, it just turns into relief from withdrawal. So like it's the my analogy, if I hope this isn't crude, but when you really have to go to the bathroom, you just really have to go. And when you finally get to go, you feel this incredible relief. You're like, oh, and that's what taking kratom is at the end. Like
Yeah.
whenever you get to a high dose, you're not even you're not even feeling anything better. You're not more focused. You're not more energized. You're just getting relief from this withdrawal. But you think your life is this baseline of withdrawal, basically. And so you think that's how it's going to be when you get off. And then you get off, and after a few months, whenever everything resets, you realize, wait a second, actually, I have more energy now. I have just a better focus in some areas. Like I didn't
Yeah.
have to have all that, but I was so scared that I was going to be unproductive. That was definitely a
Yeah.
huge fear.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then how would you describe your day to day now that you've been off of Kratom for many months? Even if things are still like a work in progress, how would you
Sure.
describe your day to day?
Yeah. Always a work in progress, but I would say everything flipped. So before, I remember going to bed Sunday nights and I couldn't wait to wake up Monday morning because I couldn't wait to go to work and to start working because work was where I got the high because I never took doses outside of work. And so it was like work was, I think maybe I figured out what it felt like to be like a workaholic, as they would call it, because work was like the highlight of my day. And then coming home, I still loved my kids and loved my wife, but I was so tired and crashing that I couldn't really enjoy that. And so what I really wanted to do is just go to sleep so I could wake up and go back to work. Now everything is completely flipped, which is amazing. Now it's like I go to work and like work is still, I still enjoy my work, but it's not, the highlight is when I get home and get to love my wife and my kids and get to spend time with them. That's the highlight. So everything is
Yay.
flipped. So that that I think is the most profound way I can say it.
That's wonderful. I think, and that's what we all hope for is to enjoy what we have and feel joy from it again. If someone is listening right now that isn't sure about quitting yet or is afraid to quit, do you have any words of wisdom for them?
Yes. So I said I used to be in ministry, so 3 points.
Yeah.
3-point sermon here. I would say number 1, just know like you're going to hit the point if you haven't already where it stops working eventually. Like you're going to. It's only a matter of time. And there's no way to get around that. You can only up your dose so much until it literally just keeps you away from withdrawal. That's just reality. I would say number 2, you it almost is you probably feel anyone who listening to this who's scared, you probably feel like it's almost a part of you because you've justified it for so long. It feels it's this is who I am. I'm nothing away from kratom. That's what I thought. I legitimately thought it was going to be part of my life forever. But just know what goes up must come down. That's one of the best things I've told myself because if I felt this incredible energy and this incredible focus and everything on kratom, that was artificial. And so if it's artificial, like eventually it's going to level off. So just know it feels like a part of you, but it's not. It doesn't have to be. And then the last thing, like the third thing is it's really easy to view yourself as weak because you're like, man, especially if you're just about to get off or you already got off and maybe you relapsed or something. But just know your mind is an absolute liar. Your mind is a 100% liar because here's the thing, like I forget if this is from a movie or from a poem, but a quote I kept reminding myself of during the withdrawal was the only way out is through. And it was like, just knowing that, hey, you know what? It's going to be the worst experience of your life, but on the other side, it's going to lead to the best experience of your life. Because everyone I know who's been sober from kratom or other opioids for any amount of time, they will say they're in a much better place today than they were back then. Every single person without fail.
Yes.
And so just know you're not weak. You might feel weak, but if you just make those daily decisions and those moment by moment decisions, like you're going to get through it and you're going to have the best experience of your life. I truly believe that.
I love that. I love that. Any other parting words or something else you wanted to share?
I think the last thing would just be you have to, and this is something I struggled with before I got off Kratom, but you have to admit the truth to yourself. And I never realized this, but I was like in the Christian world, a lot of times we say things like, we have a new identity in Christ. That's a big thing in the Christian world. And so I was always like against the Alcoholics Anonymous because they'd come in and they'd say, I'm an alcoholic. And I'd be like, you're not an alcoholic. You're a child of God. Like that would be my counter to that. And you have to live in your identity as that, this identity framework in a lot of the Christian worldview, especially right now. And what I realized though, is what they're doing is they're actually finally admitting the truth to themselves for the first time. And they realize if they don't tell themselves that, they'll just keep lying to themselves. I just didn't realize that for so long. And now I'm like, hey, my name's Alex Miller. I'm a Kratom addict because it's so easy for me to say that now because if I don't realize that, like I can easily justify taking it one time. But it's no, I am a Kratom addict. And that's the truth. And if I don't admit that to myself, I am going to completely lie to myself and justify it over and over again.
Yes.
So that's one thing. And then probably just the last thing, I just want to share some, if this is okay, I want to share some side effects that I was going right before I got off of Kratom because I know for me, I had no idea hardly any of these were related to Kratom. I knew a couple of them were, but there were
Okay.
so many things that I just thought were just normal or because I was getting older. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then, so I was going to share this because I've shared this with other people who have gotten off it and they're like, oh yeah, same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
But crashing at night was a big one that I already talked about. Just feeling no energy, feeling very anxious in the morning. I would say another one was never feeling like I got a good night's sleep. Like I could sleep 9 hours and still feel like, wow, I felt like I got 4 hours. And then I felt like my entire body was exhausted and almost painful. Like my muscles would ache in the mornings.
Yeah.
I just thought it was because I was getting older. I was like, maybe I need to work out more or whatever. But it was like painful sometimes to even carry my kids. And I just had no clue it was related to that,
Yeah.
to the Kratom.
Yeah.
Another one was I had more acne on Kratom. Constipation's a big one. I think most people realize that pretty quick, but that was definitely one that I never had before in my life.
Yeah.
Another one, and this is weird because I haven't heard anyone else say this, but my arms and my legs would fall asleep randomly, and that completely stopped once I got off of Kratom. And so I don't know if there was some sort of a ingredient in the Kratom or if that was related, but it never happened before, never happened since. But it was specifically on those high doses.
Yeah.
I
Like
got
circulation issues or something.
Yeah, I think it was circulation,
Yeah.
but just
Huh.
weird.
Okay.
I got rashes in random places, which again, that's weird, but it completely stopped after I got off Kratom. So I obviously the lack of enjoying music is a big one. Lack of appetite, eat more eating because you feel like you have to, not really because you want to.
Yep.
Things didn't really taste the same. I stopped. Oh, like before Kratom, I was a big coffee drinker. When I got on Kratom, I would just take caffeine through like energy drinks or caffeine pills or something because coffee no longer tasted good, which was
Oh.
a huge downside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Dang. Yeah. We're both drinking
Um,
coffee right now as
yeah.
we're both holding our mugs up. I'm
Yes.
glad that came back for you. So
Yes.
taste was off in food and in coffee.
Yes. Lack of a sex drive. I know that's common with all opioids, but that was a big one that I just thought, oh, I'm just busy, I'm tired, I'm getting older, whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely just a Kratom thing.
Yeah.
I mentioned this before, but just angry a lot easier. As one of my like just personal convictions is that I don't cuss or say curse words. And so I just started saying a bunch of them in my head all the time. I never let them come out. I'd say them under my breath sometimes when I'm working or something if I was upset. But that had never happened before. But I was like,
Oh,
I know not everyone says it because they're angry, but for me, because I had that personal conviction, it only came out when I was angry. And I would say it like
got it.
all the time, like either in my head or under my breath. And anyway, it's just so ridiculous that I couldn't realize something was off. And then the last thing was just the lack of emotion. And I talked about that before, but just, and all those things, I want to share this to anyone listening. All of it comes back. All of it, it's not the same. And I don't want to say it's going to be perfect because I think my life is very blessed to where maybe my getting off of Kratom is much easier because my life was already really good before I got on Kratom, to be completely honest. Whereas maybe it would be harder. I think it would be a lot harder had my life not been as good.
Uh-huh.
So I don't want to downplay that for anyone else because I definitely know it's a lot harder to get off of something when you feel like it's literally your only lifeline. So thankfully I had things in my life that were more blessings in that area. But anyway, those are the side effects I had, and I just wanted to share those just in case somebody's wondering
Yeah.
if that's something that maybe they're going through too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. Yeah, the circulation issue, I would imagine that's something that could come up for people. And then, yeah, the irritability and the anger, if it's like internalized swearing or however you express it. Yeah, that could be confusing and off putting to yourself if that's not something you dealt with before. I remember being really cranky and irritable, and I was not really that way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I was angry. I guess I was. Yeah, so I'm
Yes.
glad you're able to reflect on that and see that was not you and that was the kratom, and that you're able to separate yourself from that and come back to a somewhat normalized version of yourself afterwards. And yeah, any last parting words?
I just really appreciate you, Lily, and really appreciate this podcast. It is absolutely amazing. And yeah, I'm very grateful.
Good. Thank you. We're grateful that you wanted to come on and share your story. And I know people are going to identify with some of your words and your stories. And it's really important that you shared your side of things. And I'm just so glad that you came out of this in one piece and you're approaching a year. It's April right now. So yeah, in about a month, in about 6 weeks or so, you'll be a
Yep.
year off. Yay. Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate having you on the show, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks.